Welcome back, everyone. Let us now welcome the next session of the day entitled How Cloud Can Contribute to the Digital Transformation for Malaysia. Moderating this session is Meng, the head of Data Cloud, Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation, MDEC. Meng has been in the ICT industry for more than 30 years. At MDEC, he heads the Data Cloud department where he is responsible for the digital infrastructure ecosystem in the digital economy. Over to you, Meng.
Thank you very much, Farul. A very good morning to everyone joining us here today for the Malaysia Technology Month 2021. This morning's topic is a really interesting one. It is on how cloud can contribute to the digital transformation for Malaysia. And we have a football match session here today, a full 90 minutes to discuss this very interesting topic for us. And I think firstly, let me introduce all the panelists, and then what I'll do is I'll introduce them as I see them on my screen so I don't miss anyone out. So starting off with Jane Treadwell from Amazon Web Services, or AWS. Jane has built a career in citizen-driven and technology-enabled public sector reform, government transformation, and international digital development. Moving from public health roles, she has led large-scale whole-of-government and individual agency modernization programs in federal and state governments in Australia. She has also had senior executive appointments in digital government as Deputy CEO for Business Transformation and CIO in Centrelink, which is Australia's first one-stop shop and service delivery agency. And then as CIO of the State of Victoria, and later CEO of Design Gov followed. Jane is appointed World Bank Practice Manager on Digital Development in 2015 with territory spanning 90 countries in Asia, Europe, and Latin America. She and the team shape strategies and lending programs of data-driven government as a platform, building workforce digital capabilities, smart cities, digital economy development, and she had joined the government transformation team in AWS in 2020 to assist governments accelerate the reforms and modernization programs. So very warm welcome to Jane. Next on my screen is Farul. Farul joins us from Awantec. Farul Azim Mohammed Ghazali is a CTO of Awantec Berhad. He has more than 25 years of experience in technology across energy, healthcare, insurance industries, working in startups and global multinationals. As a passionate open source evangelist, he worked to encourage the adoption of Linux and open source in Malaysia earlier in his career. He specializes in infrastructure and cloud services and has recently started exploring digitalization projects in the public sector. So a warm welcome to you as well, Farul. Next is my screen is Lloyd Lee, who is currently Vice President of Sales of AIMS at APAC Regional Sales Head for OTT Division under Time.com Group. As VP of Sales, Lloyd is responsible for the developing business strategies and opportunities, create sales leads, cultivate cross sectors, building channel partners for the company to position all their services. Lloyd has been instrumental in leading the sales team to grow new revenue and maintain double-digit growth since 2009. Lloyd graduated from University of Melbourne with first-class honours in Bachelor of Electrical and Electronics Engineering, and followed that with a Master in Business Administration. Lloyd joined AIMS in 2006 as a client manager. And last but not least, I just lost my place. Last but not least is Encik Adi Azlan bin Muhammad Ali from MAMPU. Adi is responsible as an IICT consultant for Malaysian Administrative Modernisation and Management Planning Unit, or MAMPU. He's in charge of developing and managing the public sector cloud-first policy and consulting on infrastructure, cloud computing, and data center for the government ICT projects. So warm welcome to all of you. Let us all of you viewers now, you are in the presence of a very distinguished group of panelists here. And as I said, we have a football match worth of discussions, which we hope will stimulate discussion, because we know this is a huge topic with a wide scope, so we can pretty much go anywhere. And because we have such a lot of time, I think we do want to deep dive in various topics where anyone wanting to pose a question, then we will try to answer them during this session as well. Okay, so to start off, let me just start off with asking a question to Encik Adi from MAMPU. Okay, so we understand that the circular for cloud administration for the cloud first policy was issued on June 2021. Can you share what is MAMPU's role in this? Thank you.
Right, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you for having me. Right, since we know that MAMPU already released the circular for the public sector to have a guideline and also the policy of the cloud first for government. So in terms of what we are looking at is the three helix of entity, which is the government with the services that the government have given to the society and the businesses that complementary each other to achieve the digital economy. So as the public sector or the government, all the agencies will have a proper guideline, and before this, they would just say that there are no guideline to hop into cloud computing. So basically we have all traditional data centers, and all the application and services are all on the traditional data centers. And with this circular, the policy is whatever it is that you are going to do with the ICT projects need to be embarking on the cloud services. So in the circular as well, we have mentioned about cloud framework agreement that appointed panels for the cloud service providers. There are 4 cloud service providers that have been appointed through the cloud framework agreement. With this also, we are looking into local companies to assist the cloud service providers with the MSP, managed service provider. It is similar like what we have previously with MLA, the Microsoft license agreement that we have used before in the government. And this will actually stimulate the adoption of cloud services in the public sector and also to Malaysia. And it will bring tremendous effect to the digital economy, what I would say.
Right. Thank you, Adi. And that actually leads me directly into another question for say Farul of Awantec. So obviously, as Adi just mentioned, government has appointed 4 CSPs on the panel under My Digital, basically Amazon Web Services, Microsoft, Google, and TM. So Awantec has obviously been appointed as MSP for Google. How do you see this collaboration can benefit other local managed cloud service providers such as yourself?
Thank you, Meng. Assalamualaikum and good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here with my fellow panelists and all the viewers out there. That's a very good question. I think from a local cloud provider point of view, the overall idea is to build local talent and local experience. So I'll give you a little bit of a story, right? Several years ago, my kids were fortunate enough when they were in secondary school that they had an opportunity to visit the Google offices in Singapore. So they actually learn. It was a one-day trip, so they learned firsthand from the engineers there about what Google does, some of the technologies that they use, Maps, YouTube, Google Glass. So in a way, yes, we are building local talent and experience, but also we want to build up the excitement. So that would be a benefit, the excitement of being directly involved with big tech companies, Google, Microsoft, Amazon of the world. Now, another benefit I can think of is that when you think about the tech companies, the first thing obviously you think about is technology, but it's also more than technology. It's also culture. It's also the exposure to the some of the bigger, basically the bigger tech companies of the world. Google, for example, popularized the 20% project, where the employees are encouraged to work 1 day a week on their own personal projects, and then some of these projects become Google products in the future. So are we, that's something that maybe we can be brave enough to try and adopt, and then maybe there would be future benefits from there that we were not aware of, or we've just never tried it before. Awantec, for example, we've never tried it before, as far as I can tell. So at Awantec, what we do is we have a technology and a talent division. So we are building our partner ecosystem. We are expanding our partner ecosystem so that we are able to support the public sector. And then that in itself is a huge benefit, where hopefully we can channel the experiences we get from Google and the partners so that we can deliver solutions and upskill the public sector.
Right. Thank you, Farul. I think, okay, that actually leads me to a question for Jane. So basically, the cloud was basically invented by AWS quite a while back. And so, and I think cloud today is something that is so familiar to a lot of people that we don't think of it, that it actually had a beginning. So I think according to Gartner, now 55% of large organizations will implement a cloud-only strategy by 2025. So perhaps you could give us an idea of why do businesses find cloud so appealing?
Right, thank you so much for the question, and good morning everyone, and to my fellow panelists. Thank you also for recognizing our 15th birthday that was celebrated recently. Why is the cloud so appealing to business, and not just business, but government agencies and non-government organizations? It's because it actually allows for cost reductions, the ability to scale, the confidence of having security on hand, agility through innovation, and being able to focus the businesses or the agencies' key resources on their core competencies. So this is part of a future-proofing really for any organisation that can avoid having to concentrate on deep technology and technology operational skills. So when you're sort of looking at, the appeal, in looking at strategies for businesses, or even the policy boundaries for government agencies, the focus has to be on what business outcomes they're wanting to achieve and how well they can do it. Working backwards from that helps define why cloud is so appealing and where the cloud fits. I mean, we haven't, as people in the technology space, haven't had a reason to be able to guarantee to our colleagues why digital transformation is so important until COVID hit. And despite COVID and all of the ugliness about that, it certainly has helped accelerate the digital transformation of organizations and to demonstrate the appeal and veracity of the cloud. Remote working, online shopping, schooling, communications, entertainment are things that we're still experiencing the benefits from that deep, rich infrastructure and cloud in many cases. So there are 5 reasons why companies are moving to the cloud. and quickly. First is one of agility. So customers get the resources and tools and services as they need them. They don't have to invest deeply into a lot of technology that they're not sure exactly when they'll need it. They can deploy hundreds or even thousands of servers in minutes. And so customers and organizations can quickly develop and roll out new applications that teams can experiment and innovate more quickly and frequently if that experiment fails. And you can always deprovision those resources without risk. Second reason is cost savings. And this is usually one of the early reasons why government agencies may well nominate for cloud. Within the context of a government first cloud first policy. If you look at how people end up moving to the cloud, the conversation starter will always be around cost. Customers can trade capital expenses for variable expenses, and they only pay for the IT that they need at the time and they can consume it. And as the variable expense is much lower than what customers can do for themselves, because of big economies of scales from the hyperscale providers, they get the real gains. Third reason is the elasticity, and we saw that during COVID at the early days. Customers can move up, move down, they can provision for the amount of resources they actually need, knowing that they can instantly scale up or down along with the needs of their business. And this also reduces cost and improves their ability to meet their customers' demands. Fourth reason is that the cloud allows businesses to innovate faster, because then they can focus on their core business and what are the valuable IT resources they need to develop applications to differentiate their business from that of their competitors and transform their customer experiences instead of the undifferentiated heavy lifting of infrastructure and data centers. Fifth reason is that you can deploy globally or can deploy across the entire nation very quickly. And this relies on a very interconnected, capable set of regions and availability zones, and that continues to grow. I did say 5 reasons, but in fact, I'll add a 6th, and that's around sustainability. And as many know, the IT industry is growing, but it also has challenges in terms of impact on energy usage. But what we have discovered recently in a study by international analyst firm 451 Research, that looking at 515 enterprises and the public sector organisations across Japan, Singapore, South Korea, India and Australia, that on average moving applications to the cloud could compress the energy footprint of a workload to 1/5 of that running the same workload in an on-premises data centre. And of course, significantly lowering carbon emissions. So even with renewable energies that are constantly being drawn on, and this will also have that impact on sustainability, which is one of the SDGs for all countries and another important factor.
All right, thanks very much, Jane. That was a very thorough explanation. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how basically Malaysia can leverage on those advantages that cloud brings. So that leads me to a question for Lloyd. AIMS obviously has been in the business a very long time. I've known AIMS almost as soon as my career started 30 years ago, although it was a different name at the time, I think. But obviously, you started off as a traditional data center company, but you do have a cloud platform that you're bringing to the market as well. So basically, the thing is, I have a question for how you're going to be helping your clients, right? Because digital transformation will require an enterprise to shift much of its computing infrastructure from its own data centers to a cloud service provider. So what are the opportunities for that enterprise, basically implementing a cloud-based digital transformation strategy from your point of view as a local cloud service provider?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks, Ziming. So basically, you see the inherent nature of cloud is scalability and pay-per-use model. So this gives the company a lot of advantages. So you look at it in the past, right? We have many customers before the cloud was born. When they want to implement an IT project, it will take quite a long time, between 3 to 6 months before infrastructure can be set up for implementation. Right? They need to buy hardware, they need to engage SI to set up the infra before the software team can take over for program installation. So with cloud, this can be done in a matter of a few clicks. So this actually improves the speed to market and also the project implementation cost. And I can see that our own customer now are slowly moving away from traditional co-location services to onboard onto the cloud. And we see some of the challenges that they are facing is basically how they want to migrate these resources to the cloud. And most of them do not experience, and their infrastructure where they sit in the data center has not been shut down for years. And this creates actually fears for them when they embark on their cloud journey. So we have a team of cloud experts actually help them to look at their infrastructure as a whole and help them to assess what they need and do a migration plan for them. We look into all aspects, basically, not just whether when you shift onto the cloud, it works perfectly. We also look at security and so on. So the other advantages that actually when company embark on cloud is easy to scale, scalability. So because all these cloud service provider, they allow customers to scale their resources on demand. Actually, this is a great advantages. In the past, right, when you set up the resources, you want to cater for normal operation mode, as well as during promotional event, right? Their traffic and their resources can scale up 10 times, 20, 30 times. No way that a company will invest heavily to cater for all this big demand. So with cloud, they can actually scale up, scale down as and when they need. This actually creates a lot of value to the customer. Yeah.
Right. Thanks, Lloyd. And that leads me to Adi now. Obviously, when businesses look at transforming to the cloud, I think government will have the similar challenges, right? So I think for government, we know that a lot of agencies are looking at the cloud. And the thing is, I think government is less familiar with the cloud than companies are. So perhaps you could help by sharing with the audience the challenges that ministries and agencies are facing in adoption and how MAMPU can help solve these issues.
Right. I think cloud is not a new thing for the government, actually. And then we have been having our cloud services in MAMPU, the MyGov Cloud at PDSA. We have built up since year 2010 actually, with our own huge network of data centers. We have enough capacity to actually cater all the government agencies, the critical services in government agencies at the moment. And then we've already switched to the visualization and cloud services as the infrastructure as a service providers for the government in MAMPU. So I think now, since that we have the direction, and MAMPU has been facilitating all the government agencies into embarking not only the private cloud that we have in MyGov Cloud at PDSA in MAMPU, but also to the new direction now, which is the public cloud. That's why we have the CFAs that probably what I think here is going to ease the procurement of cloud services to the public cloud. So the procurement process will be simplified, not using the normal hardship tender process, but probably it will be more towards the panels that we already appointed, and then we have our MSP to help us to all the configurations and plannings and trainings and all those things. But not at the least, but MAMPU will also assist all the technical assessment so that we will not compromise the security and data sovereignty to the cloud. And this is definitely a biggest change for the government that we have our cloud first policy right now. So familiarization is the key here that I think that needed for the public sector to get familiarized with the new way of procurement, new way of doing things, with the ICT projects that need to use cloud services rather than the traditional data centers, and business entities also be serving the government's digitalization projects, and will help the society in terms of getting the best services that we can give into the e-services in government. So all these things is all about the digitization that we have put as a keyword, that we have the everything we have to think about digitizing the normal way of doing things. So when we have all these things going on, I think the cloud services will definitely be the key point that we should support in terms of doing the digitalization. So the other thing is like data sharing has been debated, and we also need to maintain certain issues that we should focus on, to collaboration and also integration, the system and things. I guess with all these things, we are upskilling the civil servants and also technical and the non-technical peoples. Especially, we need to cater the top management with all these digital skills.
Right, thanks, Adi. Actually, that leads me to a follow-up question for you. Well, my digital target is to have 80% of the government data on the cloud by end of 2022.
It's like a cliche terms this time.
So, do you see that as a huge challenge, and what are your plans for achieving that?
I think MAMPU, we have drafted our plans when we first embarked into this cloud first strategy in 2017, and also cloud first policy that we are doing right now. So with all our agencies that involved into doing this cloud strategy, I think it will not be much a challenge, but probably we have to work really hard in terms of looking into this, all the familiarization, the competencies of the civil servants, and also the businesses as well, and the citizens in terms of embarking the digitalization. Previously, they used to, like my father, myself, doesn't like to go and pay online. You see, he would just go to the counter and pay and get the hard copy receipts. So this thing need to be somehow improve. But as what Jane mentioned just now, and all of us agree that this COVID-19 situation actually stimulate the embarking of digitalization, as what we have the session right now in visually and digitally, right?
Yes.
So I don't think it's as a big problem, but we are working on it. We have a strategy. We are assessing the things that we need to do, the change strategies that we need to do, and everybody, I think, working together in terms of understanding what we need to do in terms of embarking into the cloud strategies.
Thank you, Adi. That basically leads me to a question for Farul now. Obviously, you are as an MSP, you are partner to the government in terms of this cloud adoption journey, and I think your role is in as part of it is value adoption and change management and so on. So maybe you can give us a little bit more idea about what Awantec will be doing to assist in this transformation journey for the government.
Thanks, Heng. So interesting that you should point out. I guess the two key phrases, value adoption and change, right? Many people identify the digitalization or digital transformation with technology, but there's also the change in mindset, the change in the way you run your life or just run your business, and how do you value the outcome of a transformation? It may not just be ringgit and cent. Like Jane mentioned, sustainability is a big win as well. I didn't realize that you would reduce your energy usage by so much when you move to the public cloud. So that's a very good metric to aim for. So for us as MSPs, what we aim to do, the two keywords are adapt and learn. So when you're talking about adapting, part of it is change management. So change management is a process. As with most of the processes, sometimes organizations, when they're transforming, it's a hit and miss. Some of them do it well, some don't. I'll give you a story about, if you live in Klang Valley area, I used to go to Sunway Pyramid regularly. So they used to have the traditional parking system, right? Where you drive in, you take a ticket, and you park a car. So sometime last year, they made a change where it's ticketless. You no longer have to pick up ticket. The system recognizes your car license plate, and then you pay online before you leave. So it's a good system, but even for someone who's regularly going, it was a bit of a surprise for me. Oh, I don't have to pull out a ticket anymore. So that's a bit of it was easy for me to adapt, but obviously the change management itself was not communicated well to their end users. So from Awantec's point of view, so that's why we focus a lot on change management, because transformation is a big journey. It's a long journey. It's not something that you can finish in 6 months. So it's something that we focus a lot on. Now I know Adi mentioned that cloud is not new in the government, but public cloud is. So from our point of view, we have experienced people who in change management who we will engage with the government. We act as advisors for the public sector. We started some of the rapid start program where we are assessing the cloud maturity and allowing the government sector and the public sector to test their feet in the water for the public cloud. So the second keyword is learning. So Awantec has been doing talent development and upskilling for many years because we have a technology in our talent division. So we've also approached Ministry of Health and we're focusing on not really teaching, but opening up the door to the school children and the people in primary and secondary schools to adopt on, with COVID now, it's online learning. So we have the Google Workspace there so that people are familiar with the tools on the cloud. So we make sure that the training is available and the tools are available at all the right levels. So for people to, at least at the primary and secondary school levels, to learn about tools that's available for collaboration on the cloud. So as you go up, so for example, now in the university and obviously with the public sector, we also want to do something on the a bit more formal. So we have the formal training programs. Some of them are free online, but we also want to have hands-on bootcamp. Encourage learning, because the cloud is a different model. I think all of us agree that it's much easier to start up in the cloud. You just log in, and then you usually have a number of free services that you can do. We want to encourage people to experiment. We want to encourage people to experience for themselves. The idea is to build up a support structure, and hopefully, we have a much more digital native culture within the universities, within the public sector, where they are just ready to adopt the cloud. I like what I think some of the examples that were given last week when they were talking about unicorns, right? So when you look at Indonesia, Google has been doing something with Indonesia, trying to encourage the use of cloud among the startups, among the public, simply because being digital native is so easy to achieve right now. So I hope that gives a bit of an idea of how we're trying to help not just public sector but everyone else that's hopefully growing and learning to adopt the cloud over the next few years.
Right. Thanks, Farul. Actually, that gives me a nice segue into my next question for Jane. So change management generally is looked at from the perspective of getting the rest of the organization changed. But I think the leadership of any organization to need some change in mindset. So perhaps you can share from your experience around the world, what are the things that you have seen where it will convince the leadership of any business or organization to look at cloud as well as the digital transformation in the business?
Thank you so much. And I just reinforce all of my panelists, co-panelists' points. Transformation is a lovely word, but it's an art and a science, and it is not just about the technology. It's actually about people's connection to either each other or their business or their customers. And so there's a lot of challenge here when you're dealing with the insiders. And I must confess that when I first became a CIO, I was told very jokingly that did I understand what the acronym meant? And I said, well, yes, I do. And they said, no, it means career is over, because it won't take long till you really dive deep and it's a mess. And so I took that on because I said, well, maybe it's a chief innovation officer as well. But at that time, and it's quite a long time ago, there were some celebrated disasters, and CIOs tended to move through organizations. So I just in terms of what works, yes, it's actually quite an interesting shift, I think, that the boards or the senior management teams, be it in government or business, they have to be a collective digital leadership group. It's no longer just moved across to the CIO or the CTO, but those two roles have to be the sort of consummate enterprise insiders They have to understand and be able to draw out where the pain points for the business is, you know, what's getting in the way of some of the business transformation initiatives. Have deep process and business understanding, but also understand, this is where the art comes in, who they're working with. Are their colleagues reformers? Are they reluctants, you know, being dragged to this sort of shared table? Are they resistors? Are they sort of trying to preserve some part of their territory, or they don't actually believe in it? And which is, of course, where familiarisation and training is not just for the staff, it's actually for the top tier as well. And then on top of that, they need to actually understand as an ultimate outsider, what's going on in the rest of the world and how can they tune into new technology developments and where might that actually fit. So yes, I've had quite a few sort of failures, and you know, from failure you learn a lot, but also what is it that will trigger an acceptance of the need for change, both personally as a leader and then collectively. And so clearly starting with what's most essential to the CEO or to the board, understanding what is driving them, and therefore framing what the cloud can offer within that context of business value, total cost of ownership, future-proofing for the next few years. How might this be done? And of course, security comes in a lot here because there are so many myths about the fact that security is better inside than making use of highly secure cloud operators. I think that recognizing responsiveness and resilience has been really important through the pandemic, and to look at now how the cloud adoption process can be a vehicle to accelerate and continue that transformation that's just begun. So I think bringing in also, I don't know if my co-panelists have experienced this or the audience has, you know, no one wants to hear from the expert within the organisation. It's always better hearing from someone outside. Yeah. And so therefore bringing in people who've done it before, being able to have on the table experiences and thinking and guidance about what went right, what went wrong, where some of the sort of the surprise benefits, and then what that did to change the way in which the organisation operates, because transformation is around a whole range of processes, culture, etc. And the expectations, I mean, talking to companies and government agencies in Australia in the last few months, they're so tired, the CIO is so tired because they've actually set a new benchmark for speed to respond. I think just like to finish off by sort of saying, and if that doesn't work, get to the nitty-gritty data. Have the value benchmarking assessments that can highlight what the cost savings will be over the next few years if this is done. Where is the operational resilience in terms of security and business continuity, the reduction in incidents? Where is the staff productivity coming from and how cloud actually supports that? And that overall business agility to actually do things that never were possible before, and now it's been done in the space of time. Helping to do that, do the value benchmarking studies. The government of Malaysia has done a government workload assessment to actually get a sense of what's possible, where the costs are, and also potentially having proofs of concept and setting up a cloud centre of excellence. These are all sort of measures, but I guess finally, the digital mindset is not something that can be just put on like a hat. It has to be grown and training up and familiarising colleagues to actually no longer be scared of some of the technology language, know that they've got an important role in doing this, knowing where they can actually find value, and seeing how the CIO and the CTO can actually be part of that guidance, navigation, element to actually grow that capability within.
Right. Thanks very much, Jane. So Lloyd, just from basically from a local perspective, how do you see this same situation with companies in Malaysia in terms of, you know, getting the whole organization from the top management all the way to the employees actually implementing it? So perhaps you can share something about the local project or customer that you have engaged with.
Basically, whether you are local or international, I believe that the process is almost the same. Most of the challenges that the customer face, right, is more towards the cultural and behavioral challenges. You see, during a digitization transformation, it requires significant changes to the structural and process that is in place, right? So most companies, they face resistance implementing new workflow, right? Your long-term employees and the risk-averse managers can be a hinder to all these digital initiatives. So in order to overcome this, right, like what Jean has said or Farul has said, we need to basically create a workforce transition plan as part of the digitization transformation initiative, right? The plan should communicate to all the employees, right, what are the digital transformation strategy are, what's the objective, and the timing. So it's also, it must consist of the process to identify the skill gaps between the employee and take this opportunity to actually upskill the existing employees to meet their future needs. So it's more towards internal, right? How do you overcome the resistance and the fear among the employee when they embark on this digitization journey, whether I'm going to lose my job, whether how I'm going to cope with new technology, how I'm going to use it. Right? These are all the internal factors. Whereas on the like other skills and like lack of dedicated IT skills and so on, those can be easily overcome by outsourcing IT skills that you don't have to a professionals that help you to implement the strategies, carry out the IT programming and so on. All this can be overcome by outsourcing. What most important is how you actually convince your internal stakeholder, your employee, to take up this initiative. The other aspect is your customer, like what Farul has said. When you implement something new to the market, the customer do not expect it and do not know how to use it, and this will create failure in terms of customer adoption. So you also need to basically tell this to the customer, what to expect and so on, right? So that they can adopt this easily, set the mindset right. Yeah, thanks.
All right. Thanks, Lloyd. Okay, that brings me back to Adi again. So I think we recognize that there's a lot there's a lot we need to do. What would you say would be the biggest challenge for the government adoption of public cloud and the digital transformation?
I just probably don't want to mention it, but then the data security probably is the most thing that people are talking about when going towards the ICT projects to the cloud services. But again, I have a different perspective where this thing can also be discussed and get familiarization in terms of making the data classification, what we discuss in the public sector a lot about the data classification, whether it can go into cloud or whether it should sit in your traditional data centers. But when we speaking about the data consideration, or probably the resources consideration for the government ICT resources, I think they are need something to be done into this data classification. It need to be discussed, and then need to be understand, and need to look into what are the workarounds that we can do. Because as I understand, these cloud services have their own standards that they have to follow, and standards of security in terms of physical security and data security, and all the the data governance that they need to do. So I think this will be the biggest challenge that we have in the government in terms of deciding whether it should be in the private cloud or into the public clouds, and within the cloud service providers, I think, and the managed service providers, the vendors also has been talking about it. But there will be a guideline that will be released by the government in terms of assisting the public sector making decision into, and probably the businesses also need to really understand about this cloud security and classification, how they can convince these public sectors in terms of showing them, or probably prove to the public sector in terms of what are the measurement that they have, the mitigation that they have in terms of security. So other than that, I think pretty much about the competencies that we need to improve in the government, the experts that need to be highlighted up, and then probably you need to provide a lot of cloud security experts in the government, and the technical also need to be, the technical staff also need to be improved in terms of the capacity that we have, because all the ICT projects, I think now it's huge in numbers, and then we need a lot of technical staff to be appointed in the government, or probably need to be addressed in terms of this, who are the people going to govern the cloud security and also the cloud services in the government. Other than that, right, I think we were still learning in terms of what are the processes that all the government agencies is facing, and we are looking thoroughly into what we can assist and facilitate them in terms of making it a success.
Thanks, Adi. Actually, I have a follow-up question for you.
Right, sure.
Cost is obviously one of the reasons why government is moving towards the cloud. But being a pay-per-use model, it's like if you leave your lights on the whole day, your electricity bill is going to be killing. So cost management is going to be a major aspect of that. And
I agree.
Governments tend to do procurement in the past as a fixed cost turnkey kind of project. Now it's a subscription model. So obviously that's going to have some challenges for you. So how are you working towards meeting that challenge?
I think that's quite a heavy question for me to answer as a but my personal perspective, I think the familiarization and then the way of doing things need to be changed somehow. So we need to understand that cloud is actually like the metaphor that I always say is it's a home, it's a house, that you have electricity bills, and then water bills, and then you have to furnish it with all the security locks and all the security cameras and all those stuff, right? So I think we need to learn it fast in terms of understanding on how do we manage on the pay-per-use or subscription matter or way. But as for the government way of doing procurement, I think we have those kind of method of when we going into a ICT project, we have a shilling price that probably we can work on, then probably plan in terms of what you're going to use within the financial year, and the payment scheme that you, whether it is monthly or quarterly. So we learned a lot from MDEC as well, because you have used up the managed service provider plan on how to manage your clouds, right? So during the early times when we did this discussion, then we are thinking on having that kind of perspective of managing these cloud billings.
Thanks, Adi. That leads me, that nicely leads to Farul here. So as the government's partner in this journey, so I think helping the government manage the cost of cloud adoption is going to be something that's fairly important on your side, or perhaps maybe that's one of the roles that you have given more technical expertise. Perhaps is something that you can assist government with in terms of management of costs. Is that something that you'll be doing, or is that something else? Yeah.
Yeah. So that is definitely something that is within our responsibility. Cost management, obviously, like you mentioned, right? You leave the lights on and you have to pay for it. So when I approach, people have talked about the subscription model or the utility model. Personally, I prefer the idea of, when you have a mobile phone, a prepay versus postpaid, right? So the traditional model is always you prepay for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years upfront, and you're stuck with whatever you have. But with a cloud, you are in a postpaid model where it depends on how much you use. If you go roaming and then you leave it on, and then you come back with a very high cost. Similarly, on the cloud. So cost management is a big deal. When you talk about cost management, I agree with you, Adi. Familiarization is one big issue. Now, but I've also worked both with AWS and now with Google, where when you talk to some of their service managers, their target is not to increase how much the customer is paying. Their target is how much can you, as a service manager, save or reduce the consumption on your customer by optimizing. So that's one of the approaches that we at Awantec is trying to approach this problem as well. So we have invested in like a cloud management platform where we have analytics and dashboards that we can present to the end customer and show, look, this is what you paid for, but this is the percentage that you're actually using. We suggest you to reduce certain CPU or memory or whatever that you actually originally wanted, but you can right size the infrastructure that you have on the cloud. So this is something that we have actually planned for even from early this year when we got the appointment from the government with the MSP model. I think going forward, there's a lot of experience for us as well. When we learn how the government starts using the cloud, then we can probably improve the optimization. Yeah.
Right. Thanks, Farul. Jane, from your experience, how have you seen governments in other countries handle this issue of cost management in the cloud?
Yeah, thanks for the question. And it is something that is of concern, especially to new users.
Sorry, Jane, your sound is a little bit soft. Yeah.
At least it wasn't off, it was just stuck behind my ear.
All right.
Thank you. Yes, this is an issue for new users of the cloud, and as Farul and others have sort of said, it's a different scheme, and therefore the issues around governance are crucial. This is interestingly covered in the UK government in terms of linking the finance areas with the government agencies and looking at spend controls. Some of that actually drove the government agencies into using the cloud because of the reduced cap, I suppose, for particular projects. But then on top of that, making use of the tools and the resources that in the UK experience, it was AWS, you know, the sort of, there are management tools in terms of monitoring and controlling access so that the lights can't be on all the time, using that metaphor. I think also, you know, there are mechanisms in terms of how you can reserve or prepay, if you like, instances so that it's not going to run away with you without being able to manage it. So I think, you know, this for the new initiates, it might look fearsome, but it's essentially a good system that can be taken account of. And within government, of course, there are many layers of accountability and reporting. So this would have to sort of fit into that. But it's as much changing the state of how things are controlled, not just sort of adding new layers to it. I think the other sort of important thing that was also raised around data security, because I suppose in AWS, or at least in the government transformation team, we look at the square of despair. What are the blockers to actually enabling this to sort of move well and with confidence? And already we've heard about how procurement can be a real blocker, but actually opening that up in different ways, making it easy to buy, but also easy to control, connecting it to the finance arena, looking at how CapEx and OpEx are actually handled. These are all ways of blocking some of the sort of the key issues we've talked about, which is how do you create an enabling environment so that cloud can be used. Some of the other issues relate to legacy technologies and environment and how that can be contained and you know, the efforts redirected. The issues around governance and data security are very important. Just in terms of the sort of the accountabilities and the sort of the aggressive top-down goals, you know, you have to actually make sure that cloud security and the classification mechanisms are really clear in order that you can hit those other key goals and performance measures that both Malaysia have identified, Singapore with its sort of 75% of workloads that are restricted and below move to the public cloud. The UK Ministry of Defence has identified that security is much better on the public cloud for their all their three classifications below secret and top secret workloads. So it's really as much using everyone's word, the familiarization, but really the building that confidence through capability from top to bottom. And I think this is a digital ecosystem. There are many companies and interests involved. There are the learners and the ones that have done things before. We certainly bring those executives together through an executive program, which is MBA style, of getting them familiar with what's been done, but also creating that network of government people that can talk to each other. But on top of that, there's a lot of training and workforce building that's required. So I think you can poke at this and get an issue out, but unless you actually build that system, as part of that art form of creating this sort of digital transformation system, both within government, but with the broader players, you won't get there as well. And with the comfort that it's within budget as well. And as a sort of former CIO, you know, we really want to make sure that this is within budget, well within time, and delivers on the expectations.
All right, thanks very much, Jane. Okay, I think there's something, there's been a common thread that has been brought up over all of what you have said in the past. That is talent, really. So I think my question for Lloyd is this. As a company that has basically moved from a traditional data center type business and moving into cloud and establishing cloud as part of your major business offering, have you had any issues getting the right kind of talent in place? Because you're moving from an engineering-based business model to a very much software-based business model with the cloud. So have you had any challenges in that aspect?
Yes, initially, when we embark on our cloud journey, we need to hire a whole group of people to handle the OS level, to handle the cloud platform as a service. So this is quite different from our traditional data center services, where we look at electrical system, we look at redundancy, aircon, and so on. So talent is basically, good talent is very hard to find. So we have to employ and train the existing employee to take up the new challenge. Because it's not just about the people who help customer to implement the cloud, help them to do migration. The supporting staff as well need to actually learn the new skill, right? Our NOC, our security operation team, our network operation team, all this need to cascade down. We need to train them to help how to handle all these resources, and when there are escalation, how are they going to handle this differently? So all this within the organization itself, we need to basically be prepared and train all the employee to take on the new skill. Yeah.
Thanks, Lloyd. So that leads me to Farul, because as a service provider as well as a managed service provider, you too need the right talent to be available to you. So have you had any challenges getting the right talent into your company to get into this part of the business?
Yeah, I think one is attracting the right talent. They are out there, but obviously, especially in the context of Malaysia and with the limited mobility because of COVID, you know, there are far fewer of them available. The other part is obviously retaining those talents, especially when we deal with the public sector. You know, you have these young engineers and software developers who are familiar with the startup or at least a technology ecosystem where, you know, you're agile, you fail fast philosophy. So when when you're working in the public sector, the sales cycles are usually much longer. So how do you keep them interested? How do you keep them engaged? So that's always a big issue. So what we're trying to do, again, you know, we do things like hands-on boot camp. That's what we aim to do, encouraging things about knowledge sharing. So if you're in areas like Silicon Valley, Singapore, and Melbourne, you know, there's always meetups running every day where you have different people from different the technology side of the industry sharing their knowledge. So you learn something new rather than just going for formal training. So it's an idea exchange as well. So yes, hiring talent is a big deal. Retaining them is also a major issue.
Right. Thanks, Farul. So on to you, Adi. Basically, I think one of the challenges in government in the talent aspect is that people tend to be transferred from agency to agency or ministry to ministry. So it's very difficult for someone to stay a long time with any particular organization within the government. Is that something going to be looked at in terms of improving how this is managed?
I will look into proposing that we have our subject matter expert program that we have in MAMPU. Probably that would be one of the best solution right now that we have. We would need to appoint the cloud experts in terms of helping the government to do all the technical advising and also allowing them to be using the cloud services in public cloud, and also looking into the possibilities of maintaining the private cloud that we have in the government.
All right, thank you. Jane, a question for you. I know basically most cloud service providers have talent programs to help their customers grow their talent pool, and so on. So maybe you can explain a little bit about what some of those are.
Sure. Thanks for the question. Yes, you're absolutely right. AWS trains hundreds of thousands of people a year to become comfortable with and effective on the cloud through that whole range of roles. We start with starting at the sort of the top end, I guess, in terms of the higher education institutions. There's
probably certification is one of the important part of doing this talenting. With all the AWS certified
yes, absolutely,
and programs and all those things.
Yes, and so there's the AWS Academy. Higher education institutions are actually partnered with free, ready-to-teach cloud computing curricula, and that prepares students for pursuing industry-recognised AWS certification and in-demand cloud jobs. With our customers, we'll help them find the way into the certification programs. There's AWS Educate, which offers hundreds of hours of content on a range of topics from cloud computing 101 to web development and machine learning, and students can explore job and internship opportunities via AWS Educate job board, and that's asynchronous self-service content. There's a AWS Restart, which is building a pipeline of non-traditional talent by preparing individuals from a diverse range of backgrounds for entry-level cloud positions, and this can be full-time 12-week classroom-based skills development and training programs, or a pathway for the unemployed to actually find a way into cloud operations, site reliability, and infrastructure support. So there's sort of many ways of and recognising, that I think that there was a report done last year for AWS that looked at 6.5 million job gap across Asia and Pacific and Japan for digital skills. This was not only the sort of high-end technical element, but also the sort of anybody working in an organisation or business has to be familiar with at least some way of utilising their devices and drawing down on data. So so that's it. And as I mentioned earlier before, we're working with a number of renowned universities around the world to partner with them to bring an executive education program targeting not the technology leaders, but the non-technology leaders in government, so that they can become much more familiar with the sort of concepts and requirements behind transformation of their business, but also gain fluency in cloud, not just the language, but actually what it means to them. So there's a very big team in AWS that it works with its customers in the public sector, which we're talking about now, to actually both inform but also lift that capability and skills required for cloud.
Right, thank you very much, Jane. All right, believe it or not, our football match is almost over. We are into the last 5 minutes. So I think let's close off with a short comment from each of our panelists. So starting with Adi, what would be your closing comment?
Right, we're looking to how cloud can contribute digital transformation for Malaysia, and we are supporting the first trust in My Digital, which is the drive digital transformation of the public sector, definitely in the government. And the most attractive thing that it mentioned in this is actually to have a digital first mindset that I would like to gather all of us here in terms of looking into the business process re-engineering, optimizing of the government resources, and also consideration, and moving from the current traditional and legacy system need to be refreshed into the cloud computing environment. And then what I would need that probably the government need also to improve the accessibility to data and information through the centralization of the cloud data, which has also been the outcome of the first trust in the second strategies and automation of the true establishment of the data workflow, right? And I have a few things also that need to be formulated in terms of embarking our nation into the cloud environment, which is the government are looking into the cloud policies for the government agencies, and also guideline for the subscription of public clouds per se, and not to leave behind the government shared services cloud need also to be taken care, which is the government private cloud. We have MyGov cloud at PDSA that we have for all the government agencies in MAMPU. And we already mentioned also about the cloud framework agreement that appointed 4 cloud services, and probably in the future we will need to open up to more providers in terms of making a broad spectrum of the subscription platforms in cloud. And then we already also look into the procurement policies that the Ministry of Finance are looking at. They'll probably come out with a new circular of looking into the providing the agile procurement purchasing, the new way of things. And then this also will not looking away in terms of the technical assessment that the MAMPU will do in terms of providing the security and data sovereignty in Malaysia. And the other part is data sharing and data security issues need to be deliberated and debated so that we can willingly make it into a success. And upskilling the civil servant, not only the technical, but also the non-technical. We need to also focus on the top management digital skills. We have now with the CIO and CDO that we appointed in My Digital. And last but not least, this change that we're talking about need to be familiarized and within the government agencies, and also all the 3 helix that I mentioned in the beginning, also including the government, businesses, and also the society. And then the society will feel the improvement of the government services with the improvement of the productivity, and also the betterment of the e-services. And we need to adapt digitalization change as the last statement I have for you.
Right, thanks, Adi. Okay, we are down to the last 28 seconds. So, Lloyd, any last comments from you?
Yeah, I just want to basically sum up. And AIMS is basically a digital infrastructure enabler. We provide the underlying infrastructure to enable the cloud service provider, the software vendors, to have their compute resource and application hosted in a reliable and secure environment. So we have both the hyperscale data center as well as our ecosystem data center in KL to cater for different kind of needs, be it high power capacity, or you need a place where there's a high concentration of network service provider to peer with each other and allow data to exchange with each other. Yeah.
Thank you. Farul, we are into extra time, so a short one from you, please.
Okay, so I think the cloud first policy part of the Moderator announcement was a huge step forward by the Malaysian government. So, and I'd like to really thank MAMPU because you guys have been doing a great job looking at the data classification, the procurement process within the government. These are challenges that, you know, as a managed service provider, we ourselves cannot really do this on our own. So thank you very much, MAMPU, for spearheading this.
Right, thanks, Farul. And last but not least, Jane, any last comments from you?
Ditto for everyone. Cloud is an accelerator of reform and modernisation, but it's a team sport. And that's both within the organisations and then across the economy. As the three helix highlights, getting to the outcomes government's after and businesses after definitely needs cloud, use of data in an effective and secure way, skills, and don't forget open source of sharing from the learnings of others. And we're here to help.
Right, thanks very much, Jane. And again, this is a final whistle. All of you, thank you so much for this wonderful session. I hope all of our audience who are watching online have found this very interesting. And I would like now to hand it back to Hasrul. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you, Azim and other wonderful panel members for that interesting discussion on the cloud during that football match that almost went to overtime. No problem there, okay? Thank you again, everybody.
Right.
The moderators are
Moderate.
getting swamped with the questions from the audience from all our sessions. Discussions are heating up, and so if you got any issues you want to bring up, please contact the admin or connect with the respective speakers or attendees via this Hublot platform or even LinkedIn. Connect to get answers for your inquiry. Connect to invest. Connect to get investment to power up Malaysia's digitalization, bringing a better quality of life for everyone in Malaysia and worldwide. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you again, everyone. We shall now take a break from our sessions and resume later at 2 p.m. for more exciting discussions, more speakers, and more of you, Malaysia, the heart of digital ASEAN. See you then. Bye.
Bye.